Donald Trump was always a bit of a playboy, so you'd think his girlfriends and wives would have gone in knowing what to expect. Way before he became president, these are the biggest red flags people somehow missed in the love life of Donald Trump.
Now, we're not saying she's a gold digger, but for the president and his first lady, there's a lot more going on than meets the public eye. Here are the strangest things we've uncovered about Donald and Melania's marriage. Even the most perfect couple will eventually get into a fight, but Melania says,
"We don't have fights.
I know, but you don't disagree on things?
We disagree, but that's okay. That's very good in the relationship."
Donald echoed that claim, telling Larry King,
"We literally have never had an argument or, forget about the word fight, we never even had an argument. We just are very compatible. We get along."
Considering Donald's long history of public feuds, particularly with his two ex-wives, this bold claim seems all the more dubious. Thanks to Melania's delayed move to D.C., according to the police commissioner, it cost between $127,000 and $146,000 a day for the NYPD to protect Melania and her son Barron, which resulted in a total cost of $24 million between Election Day and Inauguration Day alone. Public outcry over the exorbitant expense prompted a Change.org petition demanding FLOTUS either move to the White House or foot her own security bill. Melania and Barron officially moved to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in June 2017. It's clear that Melania is willing to stand up for her husband, but in the case of People reporter Natasha Stoyanov's accusations of sexual assault against Donald, Melania's defense left some questions unanswered. Stoyanov alleged that in 2005 she was interviewing the Trumps when a then-pregnant Melania left her alone with Donald. Stoyanov said, "Within seconds he was pushing me against the wall and forcing his tongue down my throat." According to Vanity Fair, Melania's public response via a letter from her lawyer posted on Twitter explicitly focused on and denied Stoyanov's claims that she bumped into Melania a few months later. Melania's non-response about the assault speaks volumes about how she handles her husband's messes. Former Mar-a-Lago butler Anthony Senecal inadvertently gave us a peek behind the Trump marriage when he tried to pay a compliment to Melania. Senecal told the Washington Post that Melania could be personable in ways the public rarely sees. He then shared an anecdote about how she urged him to take time off to visit his dying sister, but added, "When Donald's here, you'll have to stay," describing her personality as warm but restrained. If Senecal's story is true, Melania may be stifling her true personality to appease Donald. According to a GQ profile, which boldly dug up dirt on Melania's dad, Victor, he's only 5 years older than Donald and actually bears a fairly strong visual resemblance to him. Melania said of her dad, he likes quality. He wears sharp suits and had an extensive collection of Mercedes. Victor also made his own way to achieve wealth within communist Slovenia. As for the paternal comparison, Melania is characteristically flattering. They're both hardworking, they're both very smart and very capable. They grew up in totally different environments, but they have the same values, they have the same tradition. I myself am similar to my husband. Do you understand what I mean? So is my dad. He is a family man. He has tradition. He was hardworking. So is my husband. When Donald threw his hat into the ring for the presidency, the supermarket checkout was noticeably quiet about his marriage. According to Politico, this may have a lot to do with Donald's close relationship to AMI owner David Pecker, the man whose media empire owns the National Enquirer, the Globe, Radar Online, and the National Examiner. Throughout the 2016 presidential campaign, AMI's publications were highly critical of Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton and her husband Bill, while championing Trump and leaving Melania out of it altogether. But this was pure coincidence, according to Pecker, who told the New York Post, the pro-Trump and anti-Hillary covers have seen newsstand sales pop 23%. That is the only poll data that I care about. We're already familiar with the pair's strangely stiff appearance during the inauguration festivities, but it seems President Trump just can't help being awkward around his wife on the world stage. While standing directly next to his wife at a press conference in Fort Myers, Florida following Hurricane Irma, Trump said,
"Well, I just want to thank everybody. Melania really wanted to be with us. It's really touched her heart what's gone on, and we've seen the devastation."
According to The Sun, Trump's attackers quickly jumped in saying he wasn't even aware that his wife was standing right beside him, while his defenders claimed he was just saying that she felt strongly about making the trip with him. He's just awkward with words. Hopefully for Donald, that was the case, otherwise he'd be in for a long, silent Air Force One flight back to the White House.
Melania Trump is one of the few first ladies in the history of the presidency to delay moving into the White House. The Trumps made it clear they wanted their son, Barron Trump, to be able to finish school in New York without interruption. Yet questions remained about the level of involvement Melania was going to have in her East Wing duties. Back in 1999, Melania had a much different vision for her theoretical role as FLOTUS. She told the New York Times, "I would be very traditional, like Betty Ford or Jackie Kennedy. I would support him." 17 years later, Melania drastically changed her tune, telling GQ, "I chose not to go into politics and policy. Those policies are my husband's job." Her position changed again just days before the election, when she announced that one of her key issues as First Lady would be to combat cyberbullying, which many found ironic considering Donald Trump's penchant for slinging barbs via X, formerly known as Twitter.
Social media is an inventable part of our children's daily lives.
During Donald's first official overseas trip, Melania accompanied him and, according to many accounts, salvaged what could have been a diplomatic disaster. Melania essentially stole the entire international show, charming Pope Francis with small talk and making headlines with her fashion choices. Of her performance during the trip, Donald himself was reportedly overheard aboard Air Force One describing her as Jackie O on steroids. Donald Trump first met Stormy Daniels in 2006 at the American Century Celebrity Golf Championship. According to the adult film star, an affair soon followed. Donald had married Melania Trump the year before, and their son, Barron, was just a few months old when Stormy alleged things got physical between them. She shared details of their encounters with In Touch in 2011, but the outlet didn't publish them until 2018 because Trump's longtime attorney, Michael Cohen, apparently threatened to take legal action. However, In Touch finally decided to post the interview a week after a 2018 report from the Wall Street Journal claimed Cohen had paid Stormy $130,000 in 2016 to keep her from talking about the affair. The hush money allegations eventually resulted in Donald Trump being slapped with 34 felony counts.
And it's not over yet. Who knows what's going to happen?
While he has denied everything, Melania is said to have been angry when news of the affair came to light. According to a 2024 book by New York Times reporter Katie Rogers, she tried to get her revenge through small gestures, like refusing to join her husband on a trip abroad. Not only did the Trumps have a low-key anniversary in the wake of the Stormy Daniels story, they also sent up some marriage red flags when Melania suddenly dropped out of a planned visit to Switzerland for the president's attendance at the World Economic Forum. In a statement to CNN, Melania's communications director cited, quote, "scheduling and logistical issues" as the reason for the First Lady's change of plans. So, what did Melania end up doing the day her husband landed in Davos? She went to the US Holocaust Memorial Museum, which just so happens to be a 6-minute car ride or 60-minute walk from the White House, according to Google Maps. Donald and Melania Trump have repeatedly been accused of being overly cold with one another, and in 2018, The Washington Post took those allegations one step further. Speaking to numerous sources, the outlet reported that Melania and the president were leading completely separate lives while in the White House. According to insiders, the pair did not share a bedroom, rarely ate together, and, as one source put it, they spend very little to no time together. On the flip side, a different source said they actually spent almost every evening together while Melania's former friend, Stephanie Winston Wolkoff, underscored the fact that the distance between the Trumps didn't signal any trouble in paradise. She said of the pair, "They are not that couple that holds hands just because. Melania is old-world European, and it's not who she is." Indeed, back in 2016, Melania herself told The Washington Post that she and her husband enjoyed being apart, saying, "We are both very independent. We like to do what we like to do, and we give ourselves and each other space." As one source told Radar Online in 2023, Melania isn't interested in golfing or schmoozing like her husband is, and they're happy to spend time apart. They told the publication, "She mostly keeps to herself and stays out of Donald's way as long as he stays out of hers. It works for both of them." The Washington Post journalist Mary Jordan made headlines in 2020 when she published The Art of Her Deal, the untold story of Melania Trump, in which she claimed that the real reason Melania didn't immediately move into the White House was pure business. According to sources, Mrs. Trump seized her opportunity after her husband was elected president to demand that he update their prenup. She allegedly forced him to make it more favorable towards her and son Barron Trump if he wanted her to stick around. Jordan wrote, she wanted proof in writing that when it came to financial opportunities and inheritance, Barron would be treated as more of an equal to Trump's oldest 3 children.
She's very smart. She's a chess player. She plays the long game.
Melania's chief of staff, Stephanie Grisham, slammed the reports, telling CNN this book belongs in the fiction genre. Jump to 2023 when Donald was ordered to pay $5 million to E. Jean Carroll, who accused him of sexual assault and defamation, and Melania reportedly used the opportunity to cash in again. Sources told Radar that this time, she threatened to renegotiate their prenup or even file for divorce if Donald didn't up her monthly allowance and increase their son's inheritance. If he did, she promised to support his 2024 presidential run. The insider claimed, "This really was a take-it-or-leave-it situation. Let's just say Melania was in no mood to negotiate with Donald, and he knew full well there was no chance he was returning to the Oval Office without her." The first half of 2023 was rough for Donald Trump. In March, he was indicted over an alleged hush money payment made to Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 presidential election. That April, he pled not guilty to the resulting 34 felony counts, but if he was hoping for support from his wife, he didn't exactly get it. As one insider told People, she doesn't sympathize with Donald's plight. But while Melania Trump didn't appear by his side in court and she never made a public statement about the indictment, the office of Melania Trump's X account did tweet that news outlets should stop assuming they know how she feels. They also issued a public request, writing, "We ask readers to exercise caution and good judgment when determining whether or not stories concerning the former First Lady are accurate." That June, Donald's legal woes worsened when he was indicted on 37 federal charges in the classified documents saga. Again, Melania kept quiet, and sources told People she doesn't want anything to do with any of it. They also underscored that she's moving forward without getting sucked into the legal battles, but she reportedly does wish all of the charges against her husband would go away. An insider told the magazine she wants his legal team to fight this to the end and hopefully end the fight. Meanwhile, another source told Daily Mail she is focused on her family and stands behind her husband, as she always has. Donald Trump has often praised his wife publicly, and yet it seems he has a strange way of celebrating special occasions, when he celebrates them at all, that is. In January 2024, for example, the Trumps marked their 19th wedding anniversary, but rather than tweeting about the milestone, the president was totally focused on the defamation trial brought against him by E. Jean Carroll. According to a count by Newsweek, Trump spent January 22nd firing off a tirade of messages against Carroll and mentioned the retired journalist a whopping 46 times on Truth Social that day, without highlighting his marriage. A few weeks later, on Valentine's Day, the president again took a unique approach to romance when he turned a love letter to Melania into a fundraising opportunity. In an email sent to supporters, Trump told his wife he loved her and enthused, "Even after every single indictment, arrest, and witch hunt, you never left my side." He also thanked her for her unwavering support and shared, "I wouldn't be the man I am today without your guidance, kindness, and warmth." Folks were then encouraged to click a huge red button with the words, "Send your love," which allowed them to send a personalized message to Melania, as well as donate money to his campaign.
It was a tale as old as time about ego, excess, and Donald's affairs. That fairy tale eventually crumbled, but there were a lot of pressures and components that went into the Trumps' personal lives falling apart. Take a look inside the breakdown of Ivana and Donald Trump's marriage. Ivana Trump was a model from Czechoslovakia who emigrated to Canada and eventually made her way to New York City, where she met Donald Trump in 1976. According to the New York Post, the duo's first encounter was at an Upper East Side bar.
And frankly, I was dating a lot of people, and I was dating the most beautiful people in the world, and I got tired of it all of a sudden. I got tired.
The entrepreneur was in a chivalrous mood, so he assisted the model in getting a table for her party. Ivana remembered him saying, "I'm Donald Trump and I see you're looking for a table. I can help you."
Donald always had a great head on his shoulder, and I saw the potential at it.
After a whirlwind courtship, the couple married in 1977 and became the toast of the town in the 1980s, representing everything about the decade of excess. When Trump Tower opened in 1983, it became a symbol of their marriage, a glitzy, shiny ivory tower of wealth sitting right there on Fifth Avenue. It brought a lot of attention to the couple, and they basked in the adoration. But not everyone loved the new building. Fromers described it as a, quote, bold and brassy place, and went on to say, "It's definitely not your average shopping mall. The gold signage on the 1983 building practically screams, 'Look at me.'" And "look at me" is exactly what the couple wanted everyone to do. From the society columns in the New York Times to the gossip columns in the New York Post, the media soaked up every single thing the Trumps did, from charity events to business deals. With the spotlight on him and his real estate holdings, Donald was seduced by more than money. His ego got bigger, and there was no shortage of women who would throw glances at one of the most powerful men in New York. Several famous names were mentioned as rumored affairs: Peggy Fleming, Catherine Oxenberg, Robin Givens, and Carol Alt. Oxenberg denied the gossip to People magazine in 1990, saying, "It's a complete joke as far as I'm concerned. I hardly know the man." Alt's talent manager had a similar frosty reaction when asked about the reported dalliance, telling the outlet, "Donald Trump is a fortunate man, but he's not that fortunate." But we have to remember that Donald was the one who loved to talk to the press and loved seeing his name in print. He even went as far as having an alter ego named John Barron as a pretend publicist. So maybe he was the one leaking those rumors to the tabloids? We may never know the real truth, but the former vice president of the Trump Organization told PBS's Frontline, "I don't think Donald was necessarily evasive with the press when he used his alter ego John Barron. I think it gave him the opportunity to say things that he couldn't say as Donald Trump." Ivana Trump was a hard worker who helped Donald put the Trump name on the map. She was smart as a whip, but Donald didn't want to share credit with his wife. He wanted all of the accolades for himself. Ivana bragged to Vanity Fair in 1988 that her husband called her, quote, his twin as a woman. Even so, Donald certainly didn't give her enough respect.
There's not a lot of disagreement because ultimately Ivana does exactly as I tell her to do.
When she was running his Atlantic City casino hotel, Trump's Castle, he underpaid his wife by giving her $1 per year and an unlimited dress budget, according to Newsweek. Ivana rarely complained, though, because she felt like they were creating an American dream together. Speaking about her job as CEO at Trump's Castle, she told Vanity Fair, "We have nearly 4,000 employees, a payroll of $1.2 million a week. 10,000 people come every day to the castle. We serve 13,000 covers, food and drink. It's like running a small city. You have to know about housekeeping, laundry, entertainment, showgirls, orchestra, casino lounges, the health club, plus hotel marketing, casino marketing." Ivana knew all of that and more as she continued to plug away at the Trump Organization to help build Donald's empire.
So we should have world record-setting fights, but we really don't. We get along very well.
Donald reportedly met Marla Maples when he, quote, swaggered into her on Madison Avenue. The Southern Belle told Vanity Fair in 1990, "I had seen him at different places throughout the years and just said hello. I was just somebody he shook hands with." The duo would see one another at Marble Collegiate Church on Fifth Avenue, Maples explained. "Not that we went together, but we would both be there on occasion." But at some point, it turned into a romantic situation. The Trump-Maples relationship became a full-blown affair that Trump did not hide from his colleagues. Casino Journal's managing editor at the time said, "Donald was not really very discreet about it. He had her stay on the Trump princess all summer except when Ivana came." Though Donald might have thought Maples was just a fling, she told Vanity Fair that a more defined relationship was, quote, something I'd been praying for a long time. And on ABC News' Journeys of Faith with Paula Ferris podcast, Maples said she never considered herself the mistress of Donald Trump. She felt they had a deep connection, and she relied on her faith to see it through. She told Ferris, "Every step of the way I was praying, God, please be in this, please be in this. I do not want to be part of breaking anything up that has a chance." Ivana Trump's most important role in her life was being a mom to her 3 children, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and Ivanka Trump. The kids spent most of their time with their mother because Donald was too busy with his career, and Marla Maples. Ivana claimed to the New York Daily News, "Donald wasn't really interested in the children until he could talk business with them. When they turned 21, I handed them over to him and said, here's the finished product, you can take them from here." And remember, Ivana was not only raising their children at that time, but she was also running parts of the Trump Organization. So she was busy, to say the least. In her 2017 book, Raising Trump, she explained that she was quite the disciplinarian when it came to her very privileged offspring. She wrote, "I showed them dignity, diligence, and determination by example, and gave them age-appropriate responsibilities and rules, which they followed without question, or there'd be hell to pay." With Donald allegedly running around with younger women, Ivana wanted to make herself look better and underwent several surgeries to enhance her looks. And she made no secret about it. Ivana's plastic surgeon of choice was known to work with high-end celebrity clients such as Joan Rivers, Michael Jackson, Elizabeth Taylor, and more, according to Vanity Fair. At the time of Donald's alleged affair with Catherine Oxenberg, Ivana reportedly chose to emulate Oxenberg's look. A source told People magazine in 1990, Ivana knew Donald was serious about Catherine. Copying Catherine's face was the last desperate move, but it didn't work. Of course, Ivana stayed mum about that first major plastic surgery, but slyly told the entertainment outlet that, quote, if people can improve themselves, they should. Ivana did have an obsession with looking young, and she told Harper's Bazaar that while she enjoyed the wisdom that comes with age, she was often inspired by her daughter Ivanka Trump's youthfulness. She said, you take from them the looks and the clothing and the dressing. The younger generation keeps you young. But Donald contributed to Ivana's fixation with looking young. Harper's alleged that it was her then-husband who told her to, quote, never look a day over 28. That must have been a lot of pressure on the mom of three in the public eye as she worked for the Trump Organization. During the holiday ski season in 1989, Marla Maples traveled to Aspen, Colorado, where Donald was vacationing with Ivana Trump and their 3 kids. And what happened next is New York City gossip history. Ivana had already caught wind that her husband was canoodling with a woman in Aspen, but he told her that she was just, quote, a girl who was going after me for the last 2 years, according to Ivana's interview with Barbara Walters. However, it was something more significant than that. Ivana confronted a friend of Maples in a restaurant line and told her, I understand from my husband that you have a friend which is after my husband for last 2 years. Will you give her the message that I love my husband very much? Of course, Donald's mistress was standing right next to the friend, and that's when this affair got a little too real. Ivana wrote in her Raising Trump memoir, this young blonde woman approached me out of the blue and said, I'm Marla and I love your husband. Do you? I said, get lost, I love my husband. It was unladylike, but I was in shock. That confrontation would stay in the New York City tabloid headlines for 11 days straight as the Trumps' marriage fell apart publicly. The return home from the Aspen vacation was not an easy one for Donald and Ivana Trump. The couple tried to stick it out for appearances and work on a half-hearted reconciliation, but they weren't fooling anyone. Friends and the press knew this marriage was over. Ivana wrote in Raising Trump, I can only shake my head at how insane it was. I couldn't turn on the television without hearing my name. Donald's business trip to Tokyo in early February 1990 was the game changer in the relationship. Just before he left, Donald had his spokesperson relay a message to the media. According to Newsweek, that message was, he told Ivana it just was not working out. He hadn't told Ivana his definitive plans, but word got back to his first wife and she got to work. Ivana got her ducks in a row and started the divorce proceedings. She and Donald were separated that month, and she officially filed for divorce in November. Donald did display a rare moment of emotion at the time, telling People magazine, I love my children and I will always love Ivana. Right now, our paths have gone in different directions, but I would never do anything to hurt her. The couple fought over their prenuptial agreement because Ivana believed it needed to be nullified, while Donald wanted it upheld.
He took the divorce as a business deal, and he cannot lose.
According to the New York Times, the prenup morphed over the years and was amended 4 times, likely from the marriage and the birth of their 3 kids. But the negotiations were anything but easy because Donald was deep in debt at the time, and Ivana wanted to make sure she wasn't added to his long list of creditors. She also wanted to fight some of the stipulations in the agreement because it reportedly said, should the couple split, she return everything, cars, furs, rings, that Mr. Trump might give her during their marriage. According to the New York Daily News, Ivana said in a 1990 deposition, I remember the part about the gifts. I had been very hurt. I had been confused by it. I didn't understand the whole concept. Why I'm returning the gifts which are going to be acquired by my husband and given to me during our marriage. Donald wasn't going to take any responsibility for that clause. He said it was his lawyer's fault and the clause was removed. According to the New York Times, Ivana eventually walked away with $14 million, plus $650,000 in child support annually, and their Connecticut estate, an apartment in the Trump Plaza, and the use of the 118-room Mar-a-Lago mansion in Florida for 1 month a year.
after Ivana, but before Melania, there was Marla. So why did the Donald split up with the small-town beauty queen? And did she really cheat on him? Here's why Marla Maples and Donald Trump couldn't make it last. Even at the peak of their relationship, Marla Maples acknowledged she and Donald Trump led different lifestyles. Maples was born in 1963 in Cohutta, Georgia, which reported a population of 700 people in 2020, the highest recorded number since the town's beginnings. In 1990, Maples told Vanity Fair, "I'm like of the soil of the country, of a solid, firm belief in God." Maples also talked to Maximum Inc. about her childhood in 2011, telling the outlet, "I recall climbing trees, wading through streams, chasing cattle through the pastures, and being bucked off a few old paint horses. It was a very healthy and earthy lifestyle. Sports, family, and church were the center of my life in Georgia."
Oh, I miss being out here in the country, that's for sure.
The small-town beauty pageant queen was the polar opposite of Trump, a native of New York born 18 years earlier than she was. Trump's father, Fred Trump, was a businessman himself who had his own real estate empire that raked in millions for Donald and his siblings. Maples never even saw the streets of New York until she moved there in 1985. Although she had ambitious career aspirations, Maples didn't know that type of wealth, telling Vanity Fair in 1990, "I would be happier living out on a farm away from everyone and not being in this concrete world, and here he is representing everything that some people think is very materialistic." Donald Trump's first daughter, Ivanka Trump, has famously been paraded around by her father, who referred to her as his favorite in a 2004 interview with New York Magazine. After acknowledging playing favorites when it comes to daddy's little girl, Donald then remembered his second daughter, Tiffany Trump, born 12 years after Ivanka in 1993. Tiffany is the fourth child of Donald and the only child of Marla Maples. He told the magazine, "You know, I have another daughter with Marla named Tiffany. She's just a beautiful, great kid also, but it's very separate. When you have separate wives, it's sort of separate." Donald revealed his true feelings about Maples' pregnancy while chatting with Howard Stern in 2004, telling the shock jock, "Honestly, I'm glad it happened. I have a great little daughter, Tiffany, but you know, at the time, it was like, excuse me, what happened? And then I said, well, what are we going to do about this? She said, are you serious? It's the most beautiful day of our lives. I said, oh, great." In the midst of running multiple casinos, hotels, and housing developments, it's no surprise that Donald Trump might have been a little too tied up to spend much time with daughter Tiffany Trump. When Tiffany was born, Donald's focus was on taking his casinos public to make enough money to pay down some debts. Marla Maples opened up to Us Weekly in 2016 on what it was like raising their daughter, telling the magazine, "The challenge was being able to balance being a working mom and being there for a child full-time. Her daddy loves her, of course, but I was the parent. I was the parent that was there in the flesh and with her all the time." Marla added that those years were amazing and brought her the greatest joy. Even prior to their divorce being finalized, Donald published a book that addressed his views on love and marriage. He wrote in Trump, "The Art of the Comeback." Marla was content when it was just her, Tiffany, and me. I, on the other hand, realized that business needed to be taken care of constantly. Maples retreated to California following their divorce and avoided the spotlight in an attempt to give Tiffany an upbringing similar to her own. In the couple's prenuptial agreement, Donald Trump presented himself as the pinnacle of wealth, worth $1.17 billion. Despite that figure, Trump didn't agree to what Marla Maples initially asked for in the event of divorce. Maples reportedly sought $25 million from Trump in a prenup, but settled for $1 million if they separated within 5 years, plus another $1 million to put toward a home for her. In March 1994, just a few months after they were married, Maples told Vanity Fair, "We basically came to an agreement that for the first few years we would agree on something and then tear it up. So that way I feel that we have what he needs right now for his business, and then in 5 years I have what I need for a true marriage." Although Maples reportedly wasn't a fan of prenuptial agreements and held off on signing one for some time, her desire to get married trumped her hesitation. Both parties agreed to renegotiate the document after 5 years. One expert told Vanity Fair in 1994 that Maples probably didn't understand what she was getting herself into, saying, "She thinks it's wonderful because after a few years the agreement is going to expire, but let me tell you, it will either be extended after the 5 years or Trump is out of there." Conveniently enough for Trump, they separated after almost 4 years. Rumors of Marla Maples and Donald Trump dating began swirling while Donald was still married to his first wife, Ivana Trump. But during his second marriage, it was Maples making headlines after being caught with Donald's former bodyguard at the beach near Mar-a-Lago. Spencer Wagner was the bodyguard in question, and police found him with Maples on the beach at 4 in the morning on April 16, 1996.
When a police officer on duty found Donald Trump's wife here under a lifeguard stand in the company of another man.
Both Maples and Donald denied that anything happened, with Maples claiming she was just taking a bathroom break. However, Donald fired Wagner 4 months after the incident. Wagner's ex-wife, Mary Miller, alleged that Maples was no innocent bystander, telling Inside Edition in 2016. He said she would try to pull him into a bedroom in the house, and she was aggressive. She just loved to party a lot.
She liked to go out down to Miami and party when she was in town.
Wagner's own story flipped over the years. At first, he also denied the affair, but later said that he and Maples were kissing on that fateful night. 1 year later, Donald and Maples announced their divorce. Marla Maples and Donald Trump separated in May 1997 and officially divorced in June 1999. A few months after their divorce, London's Daily Telegraph published an interview with Maples, and she offered some insight into why their marriage dissolved. Not only did she say that the marriage was, in her words, built on an illusion, she also said that Trump was never the man she wanted to marry. She told the newspaper, "I'm so happy to be away from Donald, and I'm just trying to move as far away as I can. I finally found the courage to walk away and stay away. After I became a mother, I was less willing to put up with his behavior." To top it off, the Daily Telegraph quoted Maples' description of her ex-husband as an obsessive person driven by his ego. A spokeswoman for Maples claimed that the interviewer took quotes out of context but didn't indicate which quotes specifically. Donald Trump appeared on The Howard Stern Show immediately post-divorce in 1999 and offered a low-key response to his feelings on Marla Maples and their settlement. Stern stirred the pot when he joked that he knew Donald would get divorced because too many women were, quote, throwing themselves at him. Trump didn't confirm nor deny that claim, but coyly replied, "Marla was really a good person. You know, with all fairness, we had a great time. She did stick by me. You know, in the early 90s, I did have a tough time, and it wasn't the greatest time of my life." Trump seemingly backpedaled on his comments praising her when he appeared on the show again later the same year. Stern said he'd recently been looking at pictures of Maples and commented, "She fell apart. You got rid of her just at the right time." Trump agreed, telling Stern, "Just in time. Let's say that I'm very happy." In 2016, Marla Maples sat down with the hosts of Access Hollywood and spoke more on why her marriage failed. Maples reiterated how different she and Donald Trump were and said they simply couldn't bring out the best in each other. Maples cited her Georgia roots, family values, and spiritual growth as reasons she and the business-minded tycoon had to move on from each other. She even described things between them as a little bit combative during their relationship, explaining that she thought she could change him at the time.
Girls when we're in our 20s, we want to change the men we're with. We just think, well, that love is going to make them a little softer.
Per the New York Times, in May 1997, Donald Trump tipped off Gene McIntosh, a former deputy editor at Page Six, that he was splitting with Maples. Trump said that Marla's family, which he called an entourage of dumb Southerners, was essentially to blame for the divorce. He told McIntosh, "Are you old enough to remember the show The Beverly Hillbillies? That's exactly her family, except they came to New York City instead of Beverly Hills." There's been plenty of opportunity to reveal the nitty-gritty on what went down in their relationship, but Donald Trump's and Marla Maples' prenup and divorce settlement prohibit Maples from revealing too much information. So when rumors of a tell-all memoir from Maples came about, it seemed too good to be true in light of their ironclad confidentiality agreement. The book, titled It's About Time, reportedly never came to fruition because Maples failed to get Trump to sign off on its publication. Maples reportedly even had a publisher ready to get the book on shelves before the denial, according to Page Six. This marked the second time that Maples had tried to tell her side of the story, as another book set to publish in 2001, All That Glitters Is Not Gold, never made it to shelves after both the publisher and Maples agreed to not follow through with publication. With the possibility of any memoir leading Maples to face a lawsuit, considering the non-disclosure agreement she signed, fans can understand why she can be dodgy or vague when asked about her ex.